Hi everybody and welcome to the second video in a series exploring Theme 1's 1.3 market failure. Now in the previous video we looked at what a market failure was and we focused around public goods. What we're going to be looking at in this video is 1.3.4, which is about information gaps. Right, now a quick reminder then first of all, market failure. It's where the price mechanism, where the forces of supply and demand create a misallocation of resources. So in other words, it's leading to incorrect pricing of goods and services and or an incorrect quantity within the marketplace. So it's therefore not going to be maximising economic welfare. Now in the last video we looked at public goods, and what we said was that because of the free rider problem, so in other words the fact that public goods are both non-rival and non-excludable, then these products would not be provided at all in a pure free market economy. The idea was that for certain products, it wouldn't be possible for firms to extract profits from them. So we looked at things such as the armed forces, street lighting, flood defences, etc. So all the benefits those things would offer society would not exist in a pure free market economy. What we're going to be looking at in this video is information gaps. Okay, now first things first, what I would like you to do is to do some revision. I would like you to hit pause and put down your answers for question 1, please. So you've got to define the following key terms. So hit pause now, and when you're ready, hit play, and we'll move on with the video. So hit pause now, please. Right, everyone, welcome back. Now, I'm just going to go through the answers for these questions to make sure that you're happy with what these concepts mean. Now, first of all, rational behaviour. What we assume is that consumers, if we're thinking about rational behaviour, they will demand the goods and services which maximise their economic welfare. So what they would do is they would rationally look at all the information available within the marketplace to work out exactly how much satisfaction or utility, which is about wants and needs, they would meet when they buy a particular good or service. So we would buy the basket of goods and services which maximises our economic welfare. Firms would produce the basket of goods and services which they believe would generate them the highest level of profit. So when we think about utility and satisfaction, people demand or consume things in markets to meet wants and needs. That is the utility they get from goods and services. But when firms produce goods and services, the utility they would get would be profit. You could also think about this as the consumer and the producer surplus available within a marketplace. Now, what we know, though, is that it's very difficult to be rational in a market because you've got here what we call irrational behaviour. Okay, now you've got here something called herding behaviour. Now, herding behaviour is the idea that rather than buying a basket of goods and services which maximises your economic welfare, you may instead follow the crowd. You're buying a basket of goods and services based on what other people are buying within a marketplace. This could be celebrities, it could be family and friends. So you're just following their behaviour instead. And that could lead to you buying an inappropriate basket of goods and services. Herding behaviour is often thrown at voters. So young people looking to vote in their first general election might not vote for a political party which maximises their economic welfare. They may instead follow a member of their family, mum or dad, etc., and vote based on what they believe is the best decision. Now, another form of irrational behaviour is habitual behaviour. So this is the idea that because you've always bought a particular good or service or bundle of goods and services, you continue to keep buying that same bundle of goods and services. Now, over time, what you want, what your needs are, will change substantially. If we don't adjust the basket of goods and services that we buy, then it will mean ultimately, eventually, that basket of goods and services will no longer match our wants and needs. So because we've always bought a particular basket of goods and services, we continue buying out habit, and because of that, we're now buying output, which isn't maximising our economic welfare. The final one is something called weakness at computation. And this is where the information available to you within a marketplace is that complicated that it's very difficult to make a rational decision. So a really, really good example for you guys could be going to university. Weighing up the benefits of different universities and different courses and different career options is extremely difficult to compute. If you can't accurately interpret and analyse all that information, then it's very difficult for you to make a rational decision. That can often then lead to herding behaviour. So because you can't fully weigh up the benefits or drawbacks of something, you might follow a friend. So I've known students in the past that have chosen universities not based on the information available because they couldn't understand it, but instead they followed a friend into a particular university. Well, that could be an irrational decision that people have made. Right. Oh, by the way, I do want to apologise for the American spelling of behaviour on this slide. Obviously, there should be a U in there, but what PowerPoint has done, they've automatically adjusted the spelling to the American spelling of this word. Anyway, moving on. Information gaps then. So we're now going to be thinking about the market value associated with a lack of information within a marketplace. So let's think first of all then about some terminology. Now here you've got something called asymmetric information and symmetric information. Now when you've got symmetric information, it means that everyone within a market has got access to the same information. So buyers and sellers are both fully aware of the products within that marketplace and the benefits they can offer. They might also be fully aware of the different prices available within that marketplace. Now, asymmetric information exists where one party within the market, so buyers or sellers, have got less information than other people in that marketplace. So we've got here a lack of knowledge for some people in that marketplace. So a good example could be when people go to the dentists. The dentist will know a lot more about the treatments available for certain problems than what the people paying for that product will have in that marketplace. So you've got different levels of knowledge between the buyer and the seller. You could argue asymmetric information also exists when you buy cars. The seller of the car will know a lot more about that product than what you do. And that could lead to some form of irrational decision making on behalf of the consumer. We've then got something called perfect knowledge and imperfect knowledge. Now, perfect knowledge occurs when the consumers and producers have got sufficient knowledge of the market and the products available to maximise their welfare. In other words, they understand all the benefits and drawbacks of particular products in a marketplace, which allows them to be rational. Imperfect knowledge, though, is where consumers and producers lack knowledge required to be rational. So if you don't have the full information available, it's very difficult to make rational decisions. So what we would therefore say then is that if we have symmetrical information and perfect knowledge, then there shouldn't be a market failure. People got all the information they need to make rational decisions. If, however, we've got asymmetric information and imperfect knowledge, then it can lead to a market failure. People are going to be irrational due to a lack of knowledge in that marketplace. That can lead to a misallocation of resources. Right, I'd now like to think about these questions, please. So have a go at writing down, ideally with examples, the difference between symmetrical and asymmetrical information, and then the difference between perfect and imperfect knowledge. So if you can now hit pause, write down your answers, and when you're comfortable, hit play, and we'll move on with the presentation. So hit pause now, please. Right, everyone, welcome back. Now, what I'm going to talk you through now are examples of markets where we have asymmetric and imperfect information, and you can hopefully see the problems this can have in marketplaces. Right, now look at the list of products where consumers may suffer due to imperfect information. I've put here second-hand car markets, education, financial markets, pensions, which would come under financial markets, home improvements, housing market, high-tech products, utilities, and healthcare. Now, think about the second-hand car market first of all. We call this the lemons versus peaches debate. Now, think about a lemon, it's bitter, it's sour. A peach is nice and sweet. But if you were eating these products blindfolded, the only way you're going to know which one is which is by biting into it, getting under the surface. Well, the problem is that when most people buy second-hand cars, they have got asymmetric information. The person selling that car to them, remember, is selling it for profit, will know a lot more about that product than the person buying it. So that means the consumer will not know really, how good a car it is. They won't, for example, know, how efficient it is, how reliable it is, what potential problems are with that particular car. And that can lead to people not knowing whether that car is going to be a good car, a peach, or whether it's going to be a bad car, a lemon. So that could lead to more people buying bad cars in marketplaces. So people not knowing, whether they're buying a good car or a bad car, well, that can lead to very irrational decision making. Education markets, again, when people sign up for A-levels or degree programs, they may not fully understand the benefits and drawbacks of the particular courses. They may not understand the progression options, the amount of work involved in them courses. They might not even know what the product actually is, so what that program of study will actually entail. Now, again, if people don't know these things, it's very difficult to make rational decisions. Financial markets, so think about a pension. This is often a weakness at computation. When people take on board pensions, it's quite difficult to work out the long-term benefits of that financial product. And if that's the case, well, again, people can often consume incorrect levels of pensions if they don't fully understand the long-term benefits of it. Home improvement is a big one. For example, if my boiler breaks and I bring in a heating engineer to fix my boiler, and if he tells me I need a new part for that boiler, well, who am I to argue with him? Now, that could lead to me being exploited as a consumer. That heating engineer is doing so to generate profit. They could end up charging me a price way beyond what I should be paying for that particular boiler part. They may be fixing something that doesn't need fixing. But in that market, I've got asymmetric information, which makes it difficult for me to make a rational decision. One other one that I'll talk about is high-tech products. You tend to find the older you get, the more difficult it is to understand the latest technology. So for me, recently buying a new computer for my daughter, I don't fully understand the different specifications of different computers anymore. I don't know which particular computer she needs. So that again could lead to me buying the incorrect computer. Again, it's irrational decision making. Utilities, electricity, gas. These products here, people often fail to understand that they were to shop around for a cheaper deal somewhere else, they could get cheaper prices. Well, this often leads to people sticking with the same provider and often paying way beyond what they should do for that product. This is often linked to habitual behaviour. Now, what we'd often say then is that in these markets, there's a lack of information, and this often prevents consumers from maximising economic welfare. Now, this could lead to underconsumption. Don't fully understand the benefits of education or pensions, then people may consume the incorrect levels of these products. Well, that means that people are not maximising economic welfare. You can also argue that it can often lead to consumers being exploited by producers. You might pay a price way beyond what you should be for a product. That was my example with the boiler. Or you might buy incorrectly. So that was my example with the computer. I might be sold a computer way beyond what my daughter actually needs. So there's going to be some form of exploitation that might creep into that market there. What I would say, though, is that asymmetric information can also create problems for producers. And you've got examples of markets where this could happen. Insurance, healthcare, education, finance, and home rental markets. Well, this can often lead to firms, if they lack information about consumers, from being able to price appropriately and supply appropriately. A really good example is education. When we as a college take on board students, we may lack full information about the ability of that student, the work ethic of that student, the attitude, the motivation of that student. Well, if that's the case, we could find it very difficult to take on board the appropriate student for our courses. Home rental markets, when landlords take on board tenants, they don't always know, the ability of that tenant to pay their rent, how those tenants will treat the properties that they're renting from the landlord. So again, it's very difficult for landlords to work out, who are the best people to take on board as tenants, who will look after the houses, who will not look after those houses. Finance markets as well. When people take on board loans, it's not always easy for lenders to work out the ability of people to repay those loans. Well, again, that could lead to it being very difficult to work out what interest rate to charge people, but also whether they'll get their money back or not. So again, that can lead to irrational decision making. So it's worth noting, everyone, that asymmetric information or imperfect information can be really, really bad for consumers, but it's also potentially really, really bad for producers. So in summary, it's really, really bad for consumers because it means that we cannot be rational. It may lead to us consuming the incorrect products in a marketplace. And if it's asymmetric information, it could lead to us being exploited by producers. It could be really, really bad for producers though as well, because when they supply these products, it's often quite difficult to work out who to supply to and what prices to charge people. And that could affect their ability to earn profits in markets. Now, you've got here some examples of information gaps in marketplaces. Now, I've put at the top here healthcare. Well, the idea would be in healthcare markets, the people providing that service have got a lot more knowledge than the consumers in that marketplace. So, for example, if you go to the dentist, well, the dentist is providing you with that service to earn profit. If they tell you you need treatment that's going to cost £500, you've got no choice but to take their word for it. So in that example, the seller, in other words, the producer, has got market power over the consumer. They may charge people more than what they should be charging for them services, or what they could be doing, they could be doing work on people that doesn't need to be done. So in that example there, that the buyer, in other words, the patient, has got no choice but to take the word of the dentist. And that could lead to some form of exploitation of the consumer by the producer. Tobacco markets. Well, again, you've got asymmetric information. The producers of tobacco, they know how damaging and dangerous them products are for consumers. But the problem is that consumers often are not fully responsive to the knowledge in that marketplace. So, for example, what you tend to find in tobacco markets is that smokers will often disregard the long-term health problems of smoking. Well, that's a lack of information or lack of ability to respond to that information. And that could lead to more people smoking than maybe what should be smoking in that marketplace. If people disregard those long-term health problems of smoking. So it's asymmetrical information. Education as well. People that supply education, so teachers, universities, colleges, schools, wherever you want to look at it as, will know a lot more about the courses they offer than what the buyers do. Well, this could often lead to underconsumption of education by lots of students. Teachers, for example, would look at the broader, longer-term view, the longer-term benefits of education. Students often don't understand the long-term benefits that education can create. Well, if that's the case, then it could lead that people don't consume enough education. You've got the second-hand car market we mentioned before. You've got the pensions market, which we talked about before as well. But I want to just look at the insurance market right at the bottom of this page. Now, here in this market, the consumers know a lot more about themselves and their level of risk than what the seller would do. So, for example, if someone takes on board medical insurance, they know more about themselves and how risky they are than the person selling them that insurance. Now, what this therefore means is that when people sell insurance to people, it's very difficult to act rationally. You also tend to find as well that the people that take on board insurance, it changes their behaviour. So a good example, everyone, when I buy home insurance on my property, I know how risky I am. I know how reliable I am at locking doors at night time. I know how reliable I am at shutting windows. So I know what the chances are of me getting burgled a lot more than the person selling me that insurance product. So that means it's very difficult then to work out what price to charge me for my home insurance. But it's a problem that we call moral hazard. Now, the idea is that when people take on board home insurance, it will often change their behaviour. And you tend to find that once people have got insurance, they become more risky. But the reason being, if I've got no insurance on my property, if I get burgled, well, that's a big problem for me. But once I've got insurance, if I get burgled, it's still bad, but I know the insurance company will now pay out and replace the items that I've lost. So you tend to find that for insurance companies, the problem is that when people take on board insurance, they naturally become more risky. They take on board more risks, which again makes it very difficult for insurers to price people's insurance accordingly. Right, and now let's think about question 3 then. How can imperfect information and asymmetrical information lead to irrational decision making and therefore market failure? Refer to different markets where this is possible. So what you might be thinking about is, well, how can it lead to irrational behaviour by consumers? How can it lead to irrational decision making by producers? So hit pause now, please put down your answer, and when you're ready, hit play, and we'll look at the final part of the video. Right, everyone, now just to wrap up this video, information gaps. It's really, really important for you to be aware of merit goods and demerit goods. Now, merit goods are products which people underconsume in a free market economy. And that is because people lack information about the benefits of these particular products. Now, this is an example of information failure. So a lack of information leads to incorrect consumption. So good examples could be here, things such as gym memberships. If people don't fully understand the benefits of being healthy, then they tend to underconsume them products, they undervalue them. Other things that we might stick in this category could be fruit and vegetables. If people don't fully understand the long-term health benefits of these products, then they underconsume them due to a lack of information. So guys, merit goods are products that people underconsume due to not anticipating, in general, the longer-term health benefits of these products. You might even put into these categories pensions. When you're in a pension scheme as a young person, the short-term benefits are more or less zero. But in the long term, it creates a good, reliable source of income during retirement. But people often fail to consider those long-term benefits these products create. Well, that therefore creates underconsumption of these products. Demerit goods are the opposite. These tend to be overconsumed in a free market economy. And that is because a lot of the costs are more long-term and they're not really anticipated by the consumer. So a good example here could be tobacco, alcohol, gambling, etc. People often fail to consider the long-term problems of these products. So that's a lack of information, which again is leading to people consuming incorrect quantities of particular goods and services. Right, guys, to wrap up then, I want you to think about question 4. Use examples to explain why merit goods are often underconsumed within a free market economy. So you've got to think about, why people might disregard the long-term benefits of these products. So when they're consuming, they're not maximising economic welfare. And then B, explain why demerit goods are often overconsumed in a free market economy. And again, think about how people might disregard those long-term problems of these potential products. Right, guys, so hit pause now. And when you've put down your answer, you have finished this video. Thank you very much.